There is a strategy that outperforms any investment portfolio. It doesn't depend on the market. It doesn't waver with inflation. It's not influenced by government policy, economic downturns, or interest rates. That strategy is faith. Faith, not just belief, not just hope, but the absolute inner knowing that you are aligned with a source far greater than any bank, paycheck, or financial advisor. Let me ask you, when did you last trust something beyond your own ability? When was the last time you leaned not on your job, but on your divine connection? Because true wealth, lasting wealth, begins on the invisible plane, long before it shows up in your account. And that's where faith lives. Faith is more powerful than finances. This is not merely a spiritual idea, it is a life-altering truth. Most people are taught from a young age to depend on tangible systems, jobs, salaries, investments, and savings accounts. They're told that financial security is built through hard work, careful budgeting, and smart investments. And while those things are useful tools, they are not the source. They are the real source of wealth, increase, and provision is something far deeper, far more powerful, and far less understood. That source is faith. Faith is the force that moves the unseen into the seen. It is the bridge between lack and provision, between desire and manifestation. When people operate purely on human logic, they become limited by what they can see, touch, or calculate. They look at a paycheck and believe that's all they can ever receive. They look at debt and conclude they'll never be free. They hear news of a downturn in the economy and immediately feel fear. Why? Because their confidence is placed in what's visible, measurable, and temporal. But faith moves differently. Faith operates on a spiritual law. It says, I trust in something greater than this material world. I trust in a source that cannot fail. Faith sees beyond the paycheck. It recognizes that a job is just one channel, not the supply itself. It understands that just because your wallet is empty, your life isn't. Just because your account is low, doesn't mean your worth is. Faith lifts your eyes from the numbers to the promise. The power of faith lies in its ability to create. It does not wait for evidence, it produces it. When you walk in faith, you are aligning with a higher economy, one that isn't shaken by inflation, layoffs, or unstable markets. That divine economy responds to belief, not budgets. It rewards trust, not transactions. You don't have to qualify for it with a credit score. You don't need an investor or a loan. You simply need to believe deeply, persistently, and boldly that you are provided for. Throughout time, people of great spiritual power have proven this principle. They acted on invisible truths and received visible results. They gave when it didn't make sense. They spoke abundance when their surroundings screamed lack. They sowed seeds when others were hoarding. And why? Because they knew something the world did not. That faith is the key to unlock divine resources. There are moments in every person's life when the numbers won't make sense. You'll do everything right and still come up short. You'll budget, save, work overtime, and still feel stuck. This is where faith comes in. Faith steps in when the natural ends. It's not a backup plan. It's the primary strategy. Faith is what holds you when the paycheck is late. It's what guides you when the economy is in chaos. Faith gives you boldness to move forward when everyone else is retreating. Too many people wait to believe until they see results. But in the spiritual realm, it works the opposite way. You don't see it and then believe it. You believe it and then see it. Faith is the seed. Belief is the blueprint. What you expect, you invite. What you focus on, you feed. So if your financial focus is lack, struggle, and scarcity, that's what continues to grow. But if you choose to focus on the truth that you are divinely supported, that you have access to more than enough, that the universe bends to belief, then everything starts to shift. You begin to think differently. You make decisions not from fear, but from faith. You stop holding on to every dollar in fear of running out, and you start giving, trusting that what you release comes back multiplied. You stop asking, can I afford it? Start asking, is this aligned with my purpose? That's what faith does. It transforms the entire way you interact with money. Faith doesn't just make you feel good, it makes you act different. You begin speaking life over your finances. You start expecting opportunities instead of obstacles. You stop saying, I'm broke, and start declaring, I'm blessed. Because words are powerful, and when spoken in faith, they become commands in the spiritual realm. One of the most freeing truths you can embrace is this: you are not limited by your job, your education, your background, or even your current bank balance. Those are variables, not verdicts. The constant is your source. And when you make faith your foundation, the details begin to align. Ideas come to you. People show up with answers. Money flows in unexpected ways. Not because you manipulated it, but because you magnetized it. Now, some might hear this and think it's too good to be true, but that's the language of fear. That's the mindset of limitation. Faith doesn't ask, is it realistic? Faith says, is it possible? And the answer is always yes. When you believe, truly believe, you tap into a realm of unlimited potential. Faith overrides logic. It ignores statistics. It breaks the rules of what's normal and creates what's divine. You might have grown up being taught that success only comes through struggle, that money is hard to get, that abundance is for other people. But faith breaks those generational lies. It writes a new financial story, one based not on fear but on truth. The truth that you were created to thrive, that you are supported by an unlimited source, that lack is not your portion and scarcity is not your sentence. So, whether you're facing a mountain of debt, an empty savings account, or a season of uncertainty, know this: your breakthrough doesn't start with a raise, a loan, or a new client. It starts with a shift in belief. It starts with choosing faith over fear, truth over facts, purpose over panic. Faith is not a temporary escape. It is a permanent power. And when you make it your financial strategy, everything changes, not just outside, but within. Because when you know you are supported, you stop striving. When you know provision is inevitable, you stop stressing. And when you live by faith, lack loses its grip. Faith will take you where effort never could. It's the master strategy, and it never fails. True wealth does not begin with what's visible. It doesn't start in a paycheck, in a bank account, or in a business transaction. It begins in the unseen realm, within the mind, within the spirit, within the core of belief. The invisible is the birthplace of the visible. This is where all abundance originates. Before money shows up in your life, it must first show up in your consciousness. Before opportunities materialize, they are conceived in thought. Before prosperity is lived, it must be believed. Most people live in reverse. They think that if they can first see money, then they'll feel secure. If the job comes, they'll feel peace. If the sale closes, they'll celebrate abundance. But the spiritual law of manifestation doesn't work that way. You don't see it first and then believe. You believe first and then you see. Your outer world is a direct mirror of your inner world. The material realm reflects the spiritual. If your mind is cluttered with fear, doubt, and lack, that will echo in your circumstances. But if your inner life is saturated with faith, expectation, and clarity, your life will begin to mirror that truth. Wealth starts as a vibration, a thought, a certainty. You must know you are wealthy before you become wealthy. You must feel supported before support arrives. This isn't about pretending. It's about aligning. It's about accepting the deeper truth that you are connected to a limitless source of supply. That abundance is not something you chase. It's something you awaken to. It's already here. It exists in the invisible, waiting for you to activate it through belief. That's why two people can work the same job, earn the same salary, and live completely different financial realities. One lives in anxiety, always afraid of running out, constantly stressed about money. The other lives in peace, generous, expectant, open. The difference isn't in the numbers, it's in the mindset. It's in the beliefs each one holds about money, about worth, about what's possible. The inner world determines the outer flow. There's a spiritual order to wealth. First belief, then behavior, then breakthrough. First, you must shift what you believe, not just intellectually but deeply. Do you believe you're meant to prosper? Do you believe the universe is generous? Do you believe opportunities are always around you? If not, no amount of budgeting or hustling will create lasting change. Because the foundation is faulty, the soil is poor, and seeds can't grow where the ground resists. When you believe in lack, you unconsciously sabotage abundance. You delay your own breakthrough by doubting it. You might work hard, but your energy is rooted in fear. You're planting seeds while expecting a drought, and so nothing grows. But when your belief shifts, when you begin to truly know that you are divinely supported, that wealth is natural, that you are a vessel for increase, then everything begins to move. Ideas flow, inspiration strikes, favor finds you. Why? Because the outer world must follow the inner world. It cannot resist alignment. The invisible realm of belief is where strategy is birthed. Before you create a financial plan, you must create a mindset plan. Before you build wealth, you must build faith. You have to visualize the outcome with such clarity that it becomes more real to you than your current circumstances. You must see yourself debt-free, even while bills remain. You must feel wealthy even if your wallet is empty. That's not denial. That's divine alignment. That's training your inner eye to see truth beyond facts. Because facts change, but truth is eternal. Your inner world is your command center. Every action, every decision, every risk you take stems from what you believe to be true. If you believe money is hard to get, you will approach life with resistance and hesitation. If you believe you're undeserving, you'll reject opportunities even when they show up. But if you believe money flows easily, that you are a magnet for divine provision, that what you desire also desires you, then everything begins to shift in your favor. Your thoughts are creative. Your imagination is not fantasy, it's prophecy. When you dwell on abundance, you prophesy prosperity. When you dwell on fear, you invite what you fear. That's why guarding your thoughts is essential to spiritual wealth. You must curate your inner life as carefully as you manage your outer life. You wouldn't allow someone to steal from your wallet, but many allow fearful thoughts to steal from their future. You must become a gatekeeper of your mind. Affirmations, declarations, and visualization are not just motivational techniques. They are spiritual technologies. When you declare truth, you send a vibration into the unseen. You speak into the atmosphere and create alignment. When you visualize success, you train your mind to expect it. And what you expect begins to emerge. Your subconscious cannot tell the difference between what is imagined and what is real. So when you continually see yourself as prosperous, joyful, supported, and thriving, your subconscious begins to create the conditions to match that vision. The spiritual realm is always listening. It responds not to desperation, but to conviction, not to pleading, but to praising. When you believe deeply, you move differently. You no longer make decisions out of panic. You no longer chase money. You attract it because your energy shifts from lack to overflow, from fear to faith, from scarcity to security. All transformation begins invisibly. The world was formed by words, not by bricks. Before light existed, it was spoken. And in the same way, your abundance must first be spoken into existence through belief. You must say, I am wealthy, even when it feels like you're not. You must say, provision is coming, even when it hasn't arrived. And you must believe it, not because of what your eyes see, but because of what your spirit knows. That knowing is the beginning of all breakthrough. It creates a magnet within you. It sends a signal to the universe that you are ready, that you are available, that you are aligned, And once that inner alignment is in place, everything begins to respond. Clients call, bills get paid in unexpected ways. Ideas come to you that open new doors. You walk into places you never imagined being, not because you forced it, but because you believed it. Your belief carved the path before your feet took the step. So never underestimate the invisible. Never belittle belief. What looks like nothing is where everything starts. And once you master the inner, the outer will never be a mystery again. Wealth begins where eyes cannot see. And once you learn to see from within, the world will reflect that vision right back to you. Faith is not a passive feeling. It is not simply an internal hope that things will somehow get better. Faith, in its truest and most transformative form, is an active daily practice, a spiritual discipline that becomes the foundation of every decision, every thought, and every financial move. It is a system, a strategy, and a sacred structure that governs how you live, give, speak, and spend. When faith becomes your operating system, it affects not just how you think about money, but how you interact with it on every level. Too often, people reduce faith to something they lean on only in times of crisis. They treat it like a spare tire, pulling it out only when everything else fails. But faith was never meant to be a last resort. It was designed to be your first and most powerful move. It is the force that creates, the power that aligns, and the confidence that opens doors before you even knock. Living by faith means that every aspect of your financial life is governed not by fear or logic alone, but by a higher knowing. You wake up in faith, believing that today will bring provision, favor, and divine guidance. Before you check your bank balance or look at your bills, you center yourself in the truth that your source is greater than your salary. You start the day not with worry, but with a declaration: I am supported, I am provided for, I walk in overflow. When faith is your daily practice, you speak differently. You guard your words with intention, because you understand that your mouth is a tool of creation. You don't speak lack, even if lack appears in front of you. You don't curse your finances or complain about your situation. Instead, you align your words with the outcome you desire. You speak life over your income, your work, your wallet. You say, money flows to me easily and abundantly, even when it looks like nothing is flowing at all. Not because you're denying reality, but because you're choosing to shape a new one. Your actions follow your faith. You no longer give or spend from a place of fear, but from a place of alignment. Faithful giving becomes a form of spiritual investment. You're no longer afraid that giving will leave you empty. You understand that what you release in faith returns multiplied. You give joyfully, not just when it's easy, but even when it stretches you, because you know that your giving is part of your divine financial system. You also spend in faith. That means you no longer shop or invest from a place of scarcity or guilt. You no longer buy based on fear of missing out or the fear of never having enough again. You spend with clarity, with purpose, with the inner conviction that more is always coming. Every dollar you use becomes an expression of trust, not an act of desperation. Faith also shows up in how you save and steward resources. While the world may tell you to hoard in times of uncertainty, faith leads you to prepare without panic. You save not out of fear of lack, but from a mindset of stewardship. You understand that everything in your possession is part of a greater flow, and as you manage it with wisdom and intention, you position yourself for greater increase. When faith becomes your strategy, rest becomes a radical act of trust. In a culture that constantly tells you to hustle, grind, and exhaust yourself in the pursuit of success, faith invites you into rest, not laziness, not apathy, but sacred rest that says, I have done what I can, and now I trust what I cannot see. Faith-based rest is not about quitting. It's about knowing when to surrender. It's about understanding that your results do not depend solely on your effort, but on your alignment. You begin to say no to things that are out of alignment, even if they look profitable. You turn down clients, jobs, or opportunities that don't resonate with your spirit, because you know that not all money is meant for you. Faith sharpens your discernment. It makes you more selective, more intentional. You stop chasing everything and start attracting what is right. You stop working out of desperation and begin working from divine direction. Faith also teaches patience. It allows you to wait without worry. When the results don't come immediately, you don't panic. You understand that spiritual timing is different from natural timing. You know that sometimes what feels like a delay is actually preparation, that the silence is not rejection, it's incubation. Faith allows you to wait in expectation, not in anxiety. This kind of faith is built daily. It requires practice, repetition, and conscious commitment. It means feeding your spirit with truth more than you feed your mind with fear. It means surrounding yourself with messages of abundance, reading words that build you up, listening to voices that align with your vision. It's choosing to meditate, to affirm, to visualize, to give thanks every single day, whether you feel like it or not. And this daily discipline of faith doesn't always feel glamorous. There will be days where fear creeps in, days when the bills pile up, when the answers seem far, when the doubts whisper louder than the truth. But even then, faith gives you a path forward. You choose to show up for your vision anyway. You speak the truth anyway. You expect the best anyway. Over time, this discipline reshapes your inner world. And once your inner world shifts, your outer world must follow. You'll begin to notice small signs, unexpected checks, new opportunities, generous gestures, doors opening that once were shut. These are not coincidences. They are confirmations. They are evidence that your daily faith is working, that what you've been believing for in secret is starting to show up in public. You'll find yourself calmer in storms, more peaceful in uncertainty. You'll stop comparing your journey to others because you understand that your path is divinely designed. You'll walk into rooms with confidence, not because of your credentials, but because of your connection to a higher power. Faith is not something you visit, it's something you live. It becomes your daily lens, your default setting, your financial compass. It governs how you dream, how you plan, how you pursue, and how you pause. It shapes your habits, your relationships, and your financial decisions. This kind of faith isn't just spiritual, it's strategic. It's not vague, it's practical. It will lead you to ideas, to people, to systems, and solutions. It will prompt you to act, to move, to risk. It will nudge you to apply, to launch, to ask, to receive. Because faith, when lived daily, is not just belief. It is movement. It is momentum. It is magnetic. And it will take you places hustle never could. Your beliefs shape your money behavior. Every financial decision you make, whether it's how you earn, save, give, invest, or spend, flows directly from what you believe about money, yourself, and the world around you. These beliefs are often invisible, operating beneath the surface of your consciousness, but they are incredibly powerful. They influence not only your external choices, but also your emotional responses to money, your fears, your expectations, your stress, your confidence. In truth, money doesn't behave independently. It responds to your mindset. People often assume that money problems are purely about numbers. They think if they could just earn more, budget better, or stop overspending, they'd finally be free. But what many fail to realize is that money behavior is a symptom, not the root. The root is belief. What you believe to be true about money becomes the lens through which you view every financial situation. If the lens is distorted, your actions will be too, even if you try to fix the surface issues. For example, if you believe that money is scarce, you will operate from a place of fear. You may hoard it, afraid to spend even on necessary things, or you may spend it recklessly, driven by a subconscious fear that it will never come again. This scarcity mindset causes people to hold back from investing in themselves, to reject good opportunities, or to settle for jobs and salaries that are far beneath their worth. It creates patterns of self-sabotage that keep them stuck in cycles of not enough. On the other hand, if you believe that money is abundant and always flowing, your behavior changes entirely. You become more generous, not only with others, but with yourself. You give freely, knowing it will return. You spend wisely, but not fearfully. You invest in your growth, because you trust that you are supported. You say yes to aligned opportunities and no to those that feel forced, knowing that something better will always come. Your belief in abundance breeds peace, confidence, and clarity. Your beliefs also influence your sense of worth. Many people struggle financially because, at their core, they don't believe they deserve wealth. They've been conditioned to think that wanting more is greedy, or that success is only for a chosen few. They carry shame around money, believing they aren't smart enough, disciplined enough, or lucky enough to be wealthy. These inner stories become self-fulfilling prophecies. Even if a financial breakthrough comes, they'll unconsciously push it away. They'll undercharge for their work, accept less than their worth, or sabotage opportunities that could elevate them. It's not about the money itself. It's about what they believe they are worthy of receiving. That's why inner work is critical in the journey to financial freedom. Until you rewrite the beliefs that are shaping your behavior, no external change will last. You'll keep falling into the same patterns, facing the same problems, wondering why things aren't improving. The truth is, your money isn't stuck. Your mindset is. The good news is, beliefs can be changed. They are not set in stone. They were formed, often in childhood, through experience, through culture, and they can be reformed. But this requires awareness. You must be willing to examine your thoughts about money with honesty and curiosity. Ask yourself, what do I believe about money? Where did that belief come from? Is it serving me? Is it even true? You may uncover deep-rooted beliefs, like, money is hard to come by. I have to work myself to exhaustion to be successful. I'm not good with money. People like me don't become wealthy. It's selfish to want more. Once you identify these beliefs, you can begin to challenge and replace them. You can choose to believe something new, something more aligned with truth and abundance. And as your beliefs change, so will your behavior. You'll start making decisions from a place of faith, rather than fear. You'll find yourself open to receiving more, and not just in finances but in opportunities, relationships, and support. You'll begin to see that wealth is not just about accumulation, it's about alignment. When your internal beliefs are aligned with abundance, your external reality begins to shift accordingly. This inner shift doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen intentionally. You must commit to feeding your mind with new truth. Surround yourself with voices that support your growth. Read books, listen to teachings, repeat affirmations, and visualize the future you desire. Speak life over your finances, even when the facts suggest otherwise. Say things like, I am worthy of wealth. Money flows to me easily and abundantly. I am open to receiving all that is aligned with my purpose. Every financial decision I make is guided by wisdom and faith. These are not empty phrases, they are seeds. And as you plant them repeatedly in your consciousness, they begin to take root. Your old beliefs start to loosen their grip, and new ones begin to flourish. Over time, your actions begin to mirror these new truths. You'll take bolder steps, think more creatively, and make choices that reflect your growing belief in what's possible. Eventually, you'll notice that money begins to respond differently to you, not because your circumstances magically changed, but because you did. Money starts to flow where it once stalled. Opportunities find you, people seek you out. You'll find yourself in the right place at the right time, not by accident, but by alignment. Because money, like everything else in the universe, responds to belief. It responds to clarity, conviction, and confidence. When you believe deeply that you are supported, that you are valuable, that you are capable of managing and multiplying wealth, money begins to treat you accordingly. You become a different person financially. Not because you mastered every strategy or followed every rule, but because you rewrote the story of what's possible for you, the story of your worth, the story of money itself. And once that story changes, everything else follows. The budgets become easier, the opportunities become clearer, the stress begins to fade, because your decisions are no longer driven by fear, but by faith, by wisdom, by truth. You begin to operate with spiritual intelligence, not just financial knowledge. You understand that wealth is more than numbers, it's energy, and that energy is always in motion, responding to the one who carries it with intention. So the next time you look at your money, ask not just what you need to do, but what you need to believe, because it is your belief, not your balance, that shapes your behavior. And when belief is in alignment with truth, behavior becomes powerful, purposeful, and prosperous. Faith prepares before the answer comes. It acts before the evidence appears. It moves while others wait, believing without needing to see. That is the power of faith. It sees with spiritual vision, and this vision leads to preparation, not hesitation. When you walk by faith, you don't wait for conditions to be perfect. You prepare in expectation of what's promised. Because faith doesn't wait for miracles to show up. It builds the space for miracles to arrive. Most people want to see signs before they take steps. They want confirmation before they act. They want to wait until they feel ready, until the money is in the account, until someone says yes, until they are sure it will work. But faith doesn't function that way. Faith prepares as if the blessing is already on the way. Faith acts now because it trusts what is unseen more than what is seen. Faith sees the invisible and responds to it as if it's inevitable. Think about it. If you truly believed that abundance was on its way to you, wouldn't you start preparing for it now? If you knew with total certainty that provision was coming, wouldn't you get your house in order? Wouldn't you clear the space, create the structure, build the container? That's what faith does. It doesn't ask, what if it doesn't happen? It asks, what do I need to do so I'm ready when it does? This is what separates those who experience breakthroughs from those who wait their entire lives for change. It's not about luck. It's not even about timing. It's about alignment. And alignment begins with preparation. When your actions match your belief, the universe responds. When your behavior demonstrates expectation, you position yourself to receive. Faith says, build the ark, even if there's no rain. Faith says, set the table, even if you don't see the food. Faith says, pack your bags, even if the ticket hasn't arrived. Because faith knows the source, not the system. And when your trust is in the source, you are free to move without hesitation. You don't need every detail in advance. You just need clarity on the next step. Preparation is a declaration of belief. It tells the world and yourself that you are serious, that you are expecting something greater, that you are not waiting passively, but participating in your own breakthrough. If you're asking for increase but haven't prepared to manage more, are you truly expecting it? If you're believing for a new opportunity but haven't created the space for it, are you really ready to receive? You can't ask for more while living like less. You can't attract the next level while clinging to habits from the last one. Faith requires adjustment. It requires movement. It asks you to prepare today for a tomorrow that hasn't arrived yet. That's where trust is tested and proven. Sometimes preparation is physical. It might mean organizing your finances, updating your resume, clearing your schedule, or launching the project even before anyone sees it. Sometimes it's emotional or mental. It might mean letting go of the old story, forgiving past failures, healing your relationship with money, or deciding once and for all that you are ready for more. And often it's spiritual. It's about renewing your mind, aligning your words, deepening your trust, and raising your expectations. You may not control the timing of the manifestation, but you do control your readiness. And readiness is your responsibility. The truth is, you're always sending signals through your choices, your preparation, your habits about what you believe. Are you preparing like someone who expects overflow, or like someone bracing for disappointment? Your preparation tells a story. If you believe abundance is on the way, you'll prepare for expansion. If you believe the door will open, you'll practice your presentation. If you believe your business will grow, you'll invest in the structure. If you believe that clients are coming, you'll set your systems in place. That's faith in motion, not just thoughts or prayers, but concrete steps rooted in spiritual conviction. And here's the beauty of it. Even if you don't see the result right away, preparation changes you. It activates a higher version of yourself. It brings clarity, confidence, and creativity. It shifts you from waiting mode to receiving mode. You start thinking like the person who already has what you're asking for. You begin showing up as someone who is ready for increase. And when you show up like that, life starts showing up for you. Faith-filled preparation also builds momentum. One small act of belief leads to another. You clean the room, then get the idea. You write the vision, then meet the right person. You take the first step, and the next one appears. Preparation is movement, and movement attracts miracles. Stagnation, on the other hand, repels them. It's easy to say you have faith. It's another thing to live like it. Are you waiting for the blessing, or are you preparing for it? Are you hesitating until it's guaranteed, or are you preparing because it's promised? There's a huge difference. Look at nature. A farmer prepares the soil before any crop appears. He doesn't wait for evidence that the seeds will work. He acts in trust. He tills, sows, waters, protects, all before seeing a single sprout. That's faith. It's work. It's intention. It's expectancy. And without it, nothing grows. Faith invites you to prepare now. Even if you don't feel ready, even if others don't understand, even if you failed before, prepare again, build again, believe again. Because preparation is never wasted. Even if what you thought would happen doesn't come in the way you expected, your preparation sets you up for something better. It shapes your character, strengthens your courage, and sharpens your focus. It refines your identity until you are a match for the very thing you desire. There's no such thing as too early. When it comes to faith, some of the greatest blessings show up for those who were already ready, who didn't wait for proof, but acted on promise, who lived like the outcome was already done. That kind of faith is magnetic. It pulls the unseen into the seen. It closes the gap between desire and reality. You can't always predict the timing, but you can control your posture. You can stand in faith. You can act in expectation. You can live in preparation. And when you do, you tell every force in the universe, I'm ready. I'm aligned. I believe. And what you're ready for, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and practically, will begin to show up. Not because you forced it, but because you were prepared to receive it. When faith is your strategy, you gain access to a supply chain that cannot be interrupted. This supply is not tied to the global economy, your employer, your education, or even your current skill set. It flows from a divine source that is infinite, eternal, and unfailing. When you live by faith, you begin to recognize that provision doesn't come from people, it flows through people. But its true origin is higher, and that higher origin is never in lack. Faith unlocks what logic cannot. It releases provision in times of drought, makes a way in the middle of uncertainty, and fills what appears empty. Faith connects you to a source that never runs dry. While the world's systems fluctuate, markets rise and fall, businesses succeed and fail, opportunities come and go, divine supply is constant. It's not based on numbers. It's based on alignment. And the key to accessing it is unwavering belief. Most people tie their expectations to their environment. If the economy is good, They feel secure. If it's bad, they panic. If they're getting paid, they feel blessed. If not, they assume they've been forgotten. But faith doesn't operate according to the systems of the world. It operates according to spiritual laws that override natural circumstances. When you align with faith, you're not limited by the seen, you're moved by the unseen. You don't depend on the system, you depend on the source. Faith says, even if my job ends, my supply does not. It says, even if this door closes, the right one will open. It says, even if I don't know how, I know who. That shift from system to source is the key to unshakable peace and unexplainable provision. Divine supply shows up in ways you cannot predict. Sometimes it looks like an idea that sparks a new business. Sometimes it's a stranger who shows up with exactly what you needed. Sometimes it's a bill being covered unexpectedly or a job opportunity that seems to appear out of nowhere. These are not coincidences, they are confirmations. They are reminders that when you live by faith, your needs are not ignored, they are met through divine orchestration. Faith tunes you in to what's already available. Lack often has less to do with true absence, and more to do with disconnection. The supply is already present. The resources exist, the opportunities are already prepared, but if your mind is clouded with fear, you won't see them. Faith clears the fog, it sharpens your vision, it opens your spirit to recognize and receive what was there all along. Sometimes provision doesn't look like money at first. It looks like wisdom, like a strategy, like favor, like divine timing. It may not come in the package you expected, but it will always come with purpose. That's the beauty of divine supply. It is perfectly tailored to your season. It shows up when you need it, how you need it, and often through the least expected means. But to experience that flow, you have to release control. Faith requires surrender, not to defeat, but to alignment. You stop trying to figure out every step. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop obsessing over timing. Instead, you trust that your source knows the way, and your job is to stay open, obedient, and aligned. That's when the miracles start to multiply, not because you worked harder, but because you trusted deeper. The more you trust the divine supply, the less you cling to fear. You stop making decisions out of scarcity. You stop chasing security in places that can't truly offer it. You no longer worship the job, the client, or the paycheck, because you understand they are not your provider. They are simply channels, and channels can shift, but the source remains. When one stream dries up, another will open, because faith always makes a way. Living in divine supply means you start to see everything as provision. The lesson was provision. The delay was provision. The redirection was provision. You start to see that provision is not just what fills your bank account, but what fills your spirit. It's the peace that keeps you from panicking. It's the wisdom that guides your next move. It's the inner assurance that says, I don't have to beg, I just need to believe. Faith teaches you to walk in expectation. You wake up each day looking for miracles, expecting opportunities, welcoming favor. You no longer speak words of doubt, like I can't afford this, or nothing ever works for me. Instead, you begin to say, I am fully supported, and everything I need is already on the way. These are not just positive phrases, they are declarations that activate the flow of divine provision. Divine supply is not limited by geography, background, age, or education. It responds to alignment. It's not about your resume, it's about your receptivity. Are you open to receive? Are you willing to trust even when you don't have all the answers? Are you prepared to act even when the outcome isn't guaranteed? That's the posture of someone who lives by faith, and that posture attracts provision. When you make faith your financial system, you live from overflow. Even if the balance is small, you feel full. Even if you're waiting, you're at peace, because you know something greater is always in motion on your behalf. That knowing becomes a shield against anxiety, a foundation for bold decisions, and a magnet for miracles. your energy shifts, your perspective expands, and your results begin to change, not by striving, but by believing. The world tells you to work harder, push more, chase constantly, but faith invites you to rest in assurance, not in laziness or passivity, but in divine partnership. You still work, you still take action, but it comes from a place of clarity, not chaos, from inner peace, not panic. You move with grace because you trust in grace. Divine supply often begins small, like the widow's oil, like the mustard seed, like the loaves and fishes. But faith sees the potential in the small. It doesn't dismiss the beginning, it blesses it. And when you honor what you've been given, more is always released. Gratitude multiplies provision, faith amplifies it. There may be moments when it looks like nothing is happening, when you feel like the promise is delayed or the door is still shut, but in those moments, your faith is building spiritual muscle. Provision isn't just being prepared, it's being aligned. You're not just waiting, you're being refined, positioned, strengthened, and when the moment comes, you will be ready. The goal of faith is not just to get more, but to know more of the source. To become so anchored in trust that no external shift can rattle your inner security. To walk with such assurance that abundance doesn't define you, it follows you. Faith doesn't mean you'll never face challenges, but it guarantees you'll never face them alone. It doesn't promise a perfect path, but it does promise perfect provision. And when you live with that knowing, you walk differently. You stop striving, you stop surviving, you start thriving. Because you're not living off the system, you're living off the source. And that source never runs out. So now the question is not, do I have enough? The real question is, do I believe enough? Because when faith is your financial strategy, lack loses its authority, fear loses its voice, and you stop living under the weight of uncertainty and start rising in the power of spiritual certainty. You are not here to scrape by. You are not here to barely make it. You are here to thrive, to overflow, to walk in divine provision. Your source is limitless. Your supply is unfailing. And your future is not dependent on the economy, on opinions, or on odds. It is determined by your alignment, your expectation, and your faith. Stand tall, speak boldly, prepare fully, and live like you know, not hope but know, that everything you need is already moving toward you right now. Because when faith is your strategy, abundance is no longer a question, it's a guarantee. And you're already in the flow. Keep walking, keep trusting. The supply is sure, and it has your name on it.